Hey, welcome to Healthyish with Nutritionish. I am Nutritionish and I have a super amazing guest today that I'm really excited to share with you. So, I don't know about you guys, but I put off cooking, learning how to cook, I should say, for the longest time. It was never something I was interested in. Growing up, my mom was a stay-at-home mom and she was Italian, so literally I thought cooking was this like 6-hour ordeal. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then I started out learning like how to put things together. And I remember like how empowering that is. And I know some people listening might be like amazing whizzes in the kitchen. Some people might go cross-eyed looking at a recipe. And I had Chef Bailey on, and Chef Bailey or Chef Bay, as she's on Instagram, she did such a great job breaking down what the real health advantages are to cooking. So if you're somebody who's not really into preparing their own food, like it was super motivating. She also teaches you if you were like me when I first started years ago, and I would literally go cross-eyed looking at a recipe. She shows you like exactly where to start, how to balance out flavor in your food. She talks about the 6 pillars of building flavor, which is like a nice framework to really like understand how that works. And what I thought was really cool was that she shared her story about how she actually used food to help heal and manage her autoimmune condition. So I think this episode is going to really help everybody, whether you're a complete and total novice in the kitchen or if you're a pro. I think everyone's going to get something out of this episode. So without further introduction, Chef Bay. Okay. So, Chef Bailey, thank you so much for joining us. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. I'm kind of sleepy, Tuesdays I'm always like recovering from Monday, but I'm doing really good. How are you?
I am good. Okay, so I'm super excited to have you on, but why don't you give everybody a little bit of background about how you became a chef and specifically what kind of work you do and who you work with? Like, let's just get like a little rundown on you.
Yeah, so I've been cooking professionally in kitchen since I was 11 years old. So basically forever.
That's really, I'm sure
And
your parents were really excited about that, that like they didn't have to worry about dinner.
yeah, I mean, when I was younger, they were like, is she gonna burn the house down? Like when I was a kid.
Well, you showed
Um,
them.
and Yeah, totally. And, at first it was mainly pastries. So I started with like an obsession with pastries and cannolis and cakes and stuff like that. And then I was actually like a horrible student in high school. I wasn't a horrible student. I was wicked smart, but I just like didn't really conform to like typical public education. There was like mean girls in my high school. And so basically I rebelled against the whole system, got horrible grades, barely. I literally was one of those kids that failed PE because I just wouldn't go. So um, yeah, I was like always a rebel without a cause. So, culinary school worked out really well for me because I was just able to, anyone can go to culinary school basically because the dropout rate's like 75%. They're like, sure, come try it out. Like, let's see if you're cut out for it. Um, so I went to culinary school in San Francisco right out of high school. So I grew up in Boulder and moved straight to San Francisco to Le Cordon Bleu, and it was like one of the most wild, transformative, like crazy turbulent times of my life. Just like being like wrapped up in that industry. Growing up in Colorado is just so different than like moving to San Francisco, not knowing anyone, just being like a total fish out of water. And so, yeah, then I went to culinary school, and throughout culinary school, I kind of just, I did my fair share at working in the back of house of restaurants. And I just kind of realized it wasn't really for me. I didn't like the culture. I didn't like the idea that, you worked in the kitchen without windows for 16 hours a day. You
Mm,
never got to do holidays, weekends. Like it was just like not my thing. So I started my first business when I was 18 as a private chef, and it just kind of like went from there. And so I've been working like retreats, private chefing. I've traveled all over cooking for people. And yeah, that's kind of like my baseline as a chef. I've been doing it forever.
that's amazing.
Even yeah, it's so fun. I've tried like literally everything. I worked for one of the top cake makers and pastry chefs in San Francisco for like 3 years on the side too. So I learned everything how to make like super elegant, like $10,000 wedding cakes. Like literally, I've done it all.
Oh
So
my
yeah,
gosh. Well,
yeah.
I'm getting married, so we might be talking after this because that's amazing.
Oh
And
my
yeah,
gosh,
the wedding
nice.
cake industry, that is an aggressive industry. Like that's
Oh,
pretty
it's
crazy.
it's serious. Yeah, it's a serious thing for sure.
Amazing. Okay, so I am the opposite of everything you just said. I'm a nutritionist and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
My mom was Italian growing up. So growing up, I thought cooking was like the 6 hour ordeal, right? So I literally like avoided the kitchen for the longest time. And I know so many of my clients also have that same kind of like
Yeah.
they look at a recipe and they might as well be looking at like a Rubik's cube. Like you read the words, but you don't really
Yeah.
connect the dots. So
Hmm.
I was hoping you'd be able to help people who like really just don't know where to start, just develop some confidence in the kitchen. So where does one start if
Yeah.
they're kind of like in that place of like, I could read the words on the recipe, but that's as far as I get?
Yeah, totally. I think like the first thing is to connect with your food, like really understand like where your food comes from. I think there's a huge disconnect from like us being human beings and then like sitting down and eating food. And I think there's not a lot of like understanding of where your food comes from, how it gets to your plate, what it consists of, and even just like baseline understanding of that and understanding like what produce is in season right now, like why is organic food better for me? Like really like keeping it back to basics can kind of be the first baseline because even when you're going out to eat at a restaurant, a lot of times we eat things and we don't really understand how they're prepared, or especially if we're not cooking, it's kind of just this like mystery, and eating and cooking
So
is
why
one
is
of
that important for somebody to want to know? Because if somebody's listening to this
yeah.
and they're like, okay, yeah, that sounds nice, but like I don't really care. I just want to eat something. Like, why should people care where their food comes from?
Yeah. So, like eating and cooking is one of the most primitive things that we can do. As human beings, like we are literally what we eat. We are the energy of what we're eating. And so a lot of times when we have like either health ailments or blood sugar drops or we're super freaking tired all the time or we're addicted to coffee, a lot of that has to do with our connection to food and what we're eating. And the issue is too, is like a lot of times we'll be like, oh, well, let me just take this pill or this supplement to kind of like get my energy back or to heal my acne or whatever. When in reality, a lot of it has to do with your food. So when you can start to connect to where your food comes from and where your food is grown and all that stuff, then you can start to really understand why it's important and how it's affecting your body. Because the number one thing that you can do to heal yourself and feel fantastic and amazing is by changing your diet and understanding like why that's important, why you should care, and getting back in your kitchen. Because for me, like I deal with chronic illness myself. And I think the reason why I was able to heal so much more quickly than like the average person is because I have such an understanding of cooking where I could just apply the same techniques to different kinds of food and I could have like a faster track to healing.
I love that. And that's what I think people really there's a disconnect. Like people just assume if it's FDA approved and if it's on my table, like how bad could it be?
Mhm.
But I mean, you and I both know, and that's a whole other episode, like all the terrible conditions that our food comes to us with. And we do have all these ailments and allergies and weird things now that weren't really
Right.
around 20 years ago that now all of a sudden are a thing and people don't connect the dots that, people think, well, if it was sold to me, then it's got to be okay, but sometimes it's not. So I love that you touched on that. That's amazing. So
Yeah.
so that's where people could start is just kind of like valuing, and that phrase, you are what you eat, is true. So start like valuing. Now, you said you eat organic for the most part?
Yeah. Yeah. Like
Same,
everything I can
same.
find organic. There's so many reasons to eat organic and kind of touching on what you talked about, how people are like, oh, it's like FDA approved, blah, blah, blah. There are like over 10,000 chemicals that are
Yes.
being used in our food products that are not FDA approved, that are completely legal to use in our food products. Like,
So really quick, guys, before we get into that, if you don't know what Nutrish Mish is like the ultimate place to go if you're looking to create your own nutrition philosophy and develop healthy eating habits you can actually stick to. We've had 5 locations on Long Island for the past 9 years, but as of last year, we've taken our whole program virtual. You can, of course, still visit us at one of our Nutrishmish labs if you're local, but that means our program, our signature Eat Right, Live Right program that has helped thousands and thousands of people lose weight and keep it off, is now available to everyone. And we are kicking things off with $49 initial consultations. So if you go to our website, which is nutrishmish.com, click on the top where it says work with us and scroll all the way down to the bottom and you can score your $49 initial consultation. You guys are going to get so much out of this one appointment that you could take this one appointment and totally run with it and really start to make really amazing changes in your life. But try it out. I think it's going to really change the game, especially if you're somebody who's a chronic dieter. So, nutritionish.com, right at the top of the page, click work with us, scroll down to the bottom, you see that little calendar, and you can schedule your first initial appointment. I will link that in the show notes as well. All right, back to Chef Bay.
You look at glyphosate, for instance, which is the number one sprayed pesticide on all of our crops. And glyphosate is also something that's like polluting our environment, polluting our oceans. It's in everything now, it's in our drinking water. And so buying organic means that you're saying no to glyphosate, which is like proven to cause cancer. It's basically the active kind of chemical that's in Roundup. So it's proven to cause cancer. It's proven to cause all of these like issues. You know, there's no mistake that so many people have autoimmune diseases and hormone dysfunction and
Yes,
diabetes
yes,
and all this
yes,
stuff.
yes.
Right. And so when you're buying organic, you're basically saying like, okay, here, I always say this similarity. So if you're looking at like a head of lettuce, for instance, a conventional head of lettuce can have over 176 chemicals on it, including glyphosate, whereas like a organic head of lettuce can have like about 7, but that also includes like vinegar and stuff. So there's a massive difference. There's like, if you look at the toxic load that you're getting just from a lettuce, like organic versus conventional, making this choice for your own body is like, it can change your entire life. It can change your inflammation, your puffiness, all the things. And on top of that, if you're choosing organic for everything, like I just went on a rant on Instagram about how I choose organic cotton, how I choose organic cotton sheets, but you're also making a choice to, support companies that aren't using glyphosate for the sake of our environment, because glyphosate is so toxic. Like I said, it's just polluting everything. It's in like, they're finding glyphosate in like polar bears in the Arctic. Like it's literally like gotten out of control to this point where it's like, as consumers, yes, we need to look out for ourselves and our bodies and our health, which is, why we choose organic, but also for the health of our environment. So yeah, organic, everything all the way as much as humanly possible. And especially, of course, if you're on a budget, buy in season, because organic food is going to be much, much, much cheaper.
Yeah, or frozen if it's
Yeah,
produce, that's fine to do too.
exactly.
I am like literally always on my soapbox about this, and people think I'm crazy. And the argument I always get is, well, it doesn't mean it's free. I mean, like, because yes, the bar for the definition of organic is low, like
Mm-hmm.
free from sewer sludge and bioengineering and whatever. But like, if that's where the bar is, no matter where it is, I don't want to know what's below the bar. Like what's terrible is someone feeling like they're doing something great for themselves by eating a head of lettuce, like you said, but you're having a fistful of chemicals.
Right,
So,
exactly.
um, I love that. So yeah, if you could always buy organic or local, in season, frozen,
Yeah.
organic, all those things are great options. Love
Mm-hmm.
that. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a great place to start. So then the person's still in their kitchen with good quality food. Now what do they do?
Yeah. So like, honestly, this is why this summer, I'm not this summer, last year, like when the pandemic hit. So I've been teaching cooking classes for such a long time. I taught them on retreats, like all over. But this year I was like, you know what? When the pandemic hit, I was like, I'm going to do a donation-based virtual cooking class and see what happens. We got hundreds of people inside. Everyone was like, oh my God, I need
Amazing.
this. And what I really realized is that like, you don't have to figure it out by yourself. Like you can seek out help and be like, hey, I want to learn how to cook. It's really hard to learn something new as an adult. Like for sure. It's so hard. You have to like put your pride to the side and just like get in there and learn. But take a cooking class and like get regular at taking cooking classes. So like I teach virtual cooking classes twice a month. So you can take cooking classes with me. They're for all levels. But just like kind of get in there, watch cooking videos on YouTube, start following like cooking accounts, like kind of like immerse like your brain and your field into this so that subconsciously you'll get more confident in being like, you know what, I am going to try to make this, because I think a lot of times we overcomplicate what cooking actually is. And it isn't really that complicated. There's a lot of recipes that are complicated, but at the same time, there's a lot of recipes that aren't. And you can totally find the confidence. You just have to kind of like get in the flow and kind of get out of your own way, really.
I love that. And I like that you started with the why. You started with, this is why you want to be doing all this stuff, because like you want to be preparing your own food because we don't know what's in it
Mm-hmm.
otherwise.
Yeah.
And then it's not that hard. Swallow your pride. As an adult, you'll get it. If, you've done harder things in your life, I'm sure. So once you just start
Yeah,
getting comfortable
totally.
with it, just like anything else, you'll get good at it. So one of the
Mm-hmm.
questions that we got a lot from people was spices, because people are used to using like heavy sauces and things like that to flavor their food. Do you have like any like tips and tricks with like spices, like what kind of spices go with like what kind of flavor palette, anything like that? That was a question that came up a lot, believe it or not.
Yeah, so I think people are really afraid to use spices because, it's kind of like, ooh, what goes in this? But I think I would hone in on like a type of food that you really like. So like if you really like, I always say like start with Mexican food because Mexican food is like, when you're cooking plant-based, it's just so easy to make healthy Mexican food. It's also really easy to make unhealthy Mexican food, I will say. But with that, like when you're making Mexican, like cumin, coriander, garlic, those three together are like a match made in heaven. And just don't be afraid when you're seasoning, like use lots of garlic, use really good salt that you like. Like I love Himalayan pink salt or like black salt if I want like a little bit of a sulfur flavor. Like just don't be afraid. And the other thing I would say too is include citrus in your meals because a lot of times we'll make a meal and it will have all the elements like you'll add spices and it's salty but you're like it's kind of flat and it doesn't have that like bright flavor. It's probably just missing citrus. And you'd be surprised like how much lemon and lime or vinegar is in dishes. Just like a little squirt of lemon can like change your entire dish. So it's just getting more comfortable using different spices and like follow a recipe and just kind of taste as you go because then you can really see like how the recipe develops as you're tasting. I think a lot of times we'll kind of be afraid and we'll like make this recipe and then we'll taste it at the end and we'll be like, this is good. I have no idea how that happened,
That's what I do.
Yeah. So if you're tasting as you go, you can really see like once you add the coriander, you mix it in, you taste it, then you can really see like how the coriander changed that dish. And by doing that, you're
Ah.
not only learning like, you know, kind of how the recipe works, but you're also training your palate to understand what coriander does so that eventually you can grab the coriander and you don't need to taste as you go because you know exactly what's going to happen when you add it.
So smart. I love that. Okay, so those are the three. What you you said garlic, coriander. What was that last one?
Cumin.
And cumin. Okay. Do you have like
Hmm.
a three for like Italian?
Yeah, like pretty much Italian, honestly, is like garlic and fresh herbs. It's like ideal. You really want, like, especially right now in the summertime, we're looking at like fresh, juicy tomatoes. So, like, simplicity is also key. You get like a really good olive oil, onion, garlic, basil, tomato. It's like so simple. And I think a lot of times we try to overcomplicate things. But when we
Mm.
have really fresh, in season, organic produce, the flavors are so beautiful and so bright that you really don't need a ton of stuff to make it taste good. You just need a little bit of olive oil or you just need a little bit of really high quality sea salt. Like even like an heirloom tomato with just high quality sea salt and olive oil is so good by itself. But the problem is a lot of times we're used to eating those conventional like Roma tomatoes that taste like nothing. They like taste like
So you have to put a lot
literal
of stuff on
nothing.
it. Yeah.
So you have to put a lot of stuff on it to like, and like the consistency can be kind of mealy. Like you really, and that's why when you buy organic produce, you spend that little bit of extra money, then you're not spending all that extra money and all that other stuff to kind of cover up the flavor and make it taste good.
Yeah. And in regards to the money thing, I always tell people too, it's just like worth repeating that like think about your food bill, not just your grocery bill. Like I spent $5 on a cup of coffee at Starbucks this morning and think twice about it, but when someone's food bill is like 20 cents more, like you get annoyed about it. So, if you go out to dinner, family of four, it's at least $100. So like
Yeah.
think about your whole food bill when you're budgeting for like the better quality stuff. But those are really good tips. And I like
Yeah.
the citrus for brightening. That's a good one.
Yeah, totally. And I will say when it comes to like the cost too, it's also kind of like how much is your health worth to you? Because
Mm.
a lot of times like people who aren't really in tune or you're kind of avoiding like that aspect, it's not worth that much. But when you get sick enough, and the problem is too, is I see clients all the time who they come to me when it's almost too late. You don't want to have your health be worth everything when it's almost too late. It's better to be like, okay, I want to make this a priority and have your health worth so much when you're still feeling good, because then you still have energy to change. You have energy to learn something new. So yeah, I would say that just it's all mindset, it's all perspective, like where your energy goes, everything else flows. So you kind of just have to like shift your energy in order for there to be enough abundance and for you to be able to kind of like be able to eat the way that you want to.
That makes a lot of sense. So you talked to me a little bit before about the 6 pillars of building flavor. What is that?
Yeah. So you really want to think of like all the little aspects. So there's like fattiness, and I talk about this in my cookbook that's coming out this summer. So there's fattiness, which kind of like coats your
Wait,
mouth
wait, wait. Pimp out your cookbook. When is
back
that's an
up.
amazing
Yeah.
accomplishment.
Yes. I know. I'm so
Oh, there
excited.
it is.
This is my
You guys
cookbook.
can't see it, but I see it. It looks so cute. I love it.
Thanks. It's called Cook Heal Go Vegan. So it's 70 recipes, and it's basically all about learning how to enjoy plant-based food. I know that, the idea of veganism to a lot of people can be super overwhelming. And just the thing that I want to say is like, the movement, the environment, our health, all that stuff doesn't need like this tiny little group of vegans being perfect vegans. What we need is like a bunch of people trying out vegan recipes and enjoying eating plant-based food, even if it's just like one day a week. It can make such a big difference in your life, in your cooking skills, in how you feel. And so, yeah, that's kind of the purpose of the book, is just to kind of like educate people on making your own plant-based goodies. And I'm just so excited. It's got 70 recipes, and it's going to be in stores everywhere, literally
That's so
Target, Barnes and
exciting. What
Noble.
an amazing accomplishment.
Thanks.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
That's
I'm
so
so
cool.
excited.
And I love that you said that because I know like sometimes people hear veganism and they like just shut down. Like,
Hmm.
the one thing from studying nutrition for as many years as I have and as much school as I've gone through, the one thing that's very true is that like when you're thinking about what is in your food and that like you really are what you eat and everything has to be in moderation. Like whenever you could have too much kale, you can have too much spinach, you can have too much of anything, it'll have a negative impact. Like I would say nutrition is a very much so Goldilocks science. So if you're 100%, and I am very much so like a meat eater, if you're 100 but you're eating meat and that kind of animal protein at every single meal, it's too much. You do need that balance. So to have that tool in your toolkit of being able to make some plant-based stuff without
Yeah,
having to be a
exactly.
vegan, like it's so critical. So I love
Yeah.
that you
And you
point that
and
out.
you never know where it can go. Like I come from a long line of butchers. I'm a classically French trained chef.
Are you really? That's so funny.
Yeah, so I used to think that vegans were crazy. Like I never ever thought that I was going to be vegan. And this lifestyle saved my life. It saved the life of so many of my clients. And now that I've shifted my focus from animal protein and just like, so like animal protein is so calorie dense. So you're focusing so much of that on, what you're cooking and your flavors and all that stuff. Once you focus out of like that as your main focus of your meal, like it's made me such a better chef. It can make you a better cook because you become more creative because you're not using the same couple of animal proteins for every single meal. You're really able to get like more diversity in your diet and kind of like switch it up a little bit, which can benefit in so many different things, like your confidence in the kitchen, your health, your gut health, all that stuff.
That's so true. My fiance one week watched one of those like documentaries,
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called, the athlete one.
Yeah. Game
And
changers.
yes, Game Changers. He watched that. So he watched it and he was just like, we need to go vegetarian. I was like, oh God. And like coming from a nutrition background, when you go to school for it, they make you watch like all those things. So I'm just like, okay, like, but he was very like into it for like a week. So he was like a week or two. And it really did. I had to step out of my like normal things that I knew how to make. I made like jackfruit tacos and like all this cool
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And it was actually like it added a lot of like new things to my repertoire that I knew how to do. So you're so right when you say that. It really does like hone your skills a little bit. Very
Totally.
cool.
And then if
Okay.
you're like, oh, go ahead. What
No,
are
go
you going
ahead.
to
What are you
say?
gonna say?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, if you're, feeling kind of icky, or you're kind of like, oh, I need to like take a break from meat or dairy, like, then you'll kind of like know what to do, and you never know where it can take you. And, you cooking plants, you never know how it could like affect somebody else who really needs help in their lifestyle and diet as well. So it's definitely a ripple effect.
So true. Okay, so sorry, we went on a little bit of a tangent there, but we were talking about
Yeah,
the 6 pillars of building flavor.
totally. Yeah, so there's like fattiness, so that's fat. So you can get fat from so many different sources, like avocados, nuts, olive oil. So fat is a huge player because it coats your mouth. So that's kind of like when we eat cheese, that's why we're like, oh my God, this is so good, because it's just like fat. It's coating our mouth. It's that round molecule that's like, super crave worthy. So you really kind of want that, and it kind of helps like other flavors stick to, your dish. So that's super important. Then we look at like acidity. So acidity can be like I talked about before, lemons, limes, oranges, vinegar, balsamic, like all that kind of stuff. So you're looking at acid. Then we look at spice. So spice can be like spices, or it can also be like jalapenos, peppers, black pepper. I always say even if you don't like spicy food, you would be surprised like how many dishes that you eat out even incorporate like hot sauce or hot peppers that don't taste spicy because it's just like helping you round out the flavor. So that's something to think about.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's salt because we need that saltiness. Salt can like help bring out the flavor. The actual purpose of salt is to help bring out the natural flavors in other things. So that's why when you taste that something's overly salty and all you taste is the salt, is because that's not really like the point of it. The point is to help bring out the natural flavor. Like I was talking about the tomato earlier, just like a little sprinkle of sea salt can really help like elevate the natural flavors of those tomatoes. So there's salts. What's the fifth one? We've got sweetness. So I always am adding sweetness, whether it's like a butternut squash to a dish or just like a dash of agave or something like that. It can really help round out the flavor. And then the final one is like umami. So that's like what you taste when you eat sushi. That's like what sesame oil is, soy sauce, that kind of thing. It's kind of like that flavor that you just can't put your like you just can't name it, you can't call it out, is like that umami flavor that you're getting from like a lot of Asian dishes. So when you think about those six pillars, when you're making a dish and for some reason it's let's say it's too salty, you can add a little bit more fat to kind of like level out a little bit of the salt. Or let's say it's too fatty or you added too much spice to it, you could add a little bit of citrus to brighten it up. So you can kind of use those pillars and kind of think about, you can write them down and put them on your fridge so that when you're cooking you can be like, okay, what did I do here? Why does this taste so weird? Which one of these pillars can I add to kind of like level this flavor out?
Wait, okay, so what is the opposite of what? So if I made something and it's too salty, what do I do?
I would add fat or I would add sweetness. Yeah.
Okay. And then sweetness, what would be the opposite of that
If
if something
it's
was too sweet?
if it's too sweet, you could always like, it's honestly the opposite. You could add fat or you could add saltiness. You
Okay.
could add citrus. You kind of just want to kind of like, and you can always add water too. Like if you're making a sauce and you just want to dilute it a little, like if it's too strong, you could always just add a little bit of water.
I mean, okay, cool. And then if something is too acidic, how do I round that out?
Fat.
Fat. Okay.
Yeah.
So you guys better be writing this down for your fridge notes. And then if something has too much of that, like umami,
Umami
how do you
flavor.
say it? Umami?
Umami.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And you're right. There is like no word for it, but like, so
Yeah.
if something has like a little too much of that, what would balance that out? Sweetness?
Yeah, you could do sweetness or citrus would really help kind of brighten it because that umami flavor is like a little bit flat, you know what I mean? So if you want to kind of like brighten it up and pull it out, you can add a little bit of citrus, like lime. I love lime when it comes to that. Yeah.
Ooh, I love, ooh, these are good. These are good tips. I'm going to be using all of these. That's amazing. Um, so you talked before about how you kind of healed yourself with food. If I have people listening, which I'm sure I do, and probably more and more as this episode has a life,
Mhm.
who have an autoimmune condition, like how did you, like, I don't want to say cure or heal yourself, but like how did you manage it through food? And then do you have any tips for somebody who doesn't maybe have a cooking background, but they do have an autoimmune, like where can they start?
Yeah, so I have endometriosis. I've had it since I was 11. It's debilitating. 1 in 10 women have it. There's like no real like great options other than like surgery, hormone replacements. Like it's just kind of a shit show. It's like a literal shit show. It's insane. So if you have endometriosis and you're listening to this episode, reach out to me. I talk to women all the time. It's very isolating. But for me, it was like I had done everything. I had done surgeries, I had done pills, I had literally been on every birth control known to man. I had like opiates, like you name it, that was my life forever. And I just, after my last surgery, I just got so fed up with the system and I was like, I can't do this. And, I had gone back to school for nutrition years before that. And I was kind of like, still eating meat and dairy. And I just like wasn't progressing. Like I had stopped eating processed foods and fast food and all that kind of stuff, but I still just like felt like I wasn't getting better. And same thing, I watched like a bunch of documentaries and just like started educating myself on plant-based food. And I was like, you know what? I need to like quit eating meat, dairy, all animal products like eggs. I just need to just stop and just see what happens. It was the only thing I hadn't tried. And it was like in my mind, I was like, this is a last resort. Cause I was like, a French trained chef, like my identity was kind of based in that. And it literally changed my life in ways that like makes me emotional even talking about, because I went from being sick, being in the hospital every single month, to being able to get off of all my medications, all my birth control, like all that stuff. And eventually I started, finding other toxicities in my life that were causing inflammation, like my makeup and my hair care products and my cleaning products in my home. And being able to get rid of that, plus getting rid of animal products, got rid of so much inflammation. And it's amazing now, because in the last 3 to 4 years, the science around plant-based nutrition is backed. It's like all backing up. Like I'm seeing all these new studies come out. And I'm like, wow, this is truly the way to heal your body, like pretty much universally. And so if somebody has a chronic condition, the first thing that I would say is to get rid of dairy, like out of your diet, like just get rid of it. It's so inflammatory. And there's so many dairy alternatives. Like I have like a vegan sour cream in my cookbook, vegan butter. Like there's just like so many alternatives that you can do that aren't processed unhealthy ones, because there's plenty of processed unhealthy vegan food at the grocery store. So yeah, I would just say get rid of dairy first, and then slowly kind of cut out meat, like one thing at a time. It's definitely like a slow roll. It's really hard if you want to, do it cold turkey. It's definitely like much more challenging. So I would definitely say like slowly cut out animal products, cut out processed foods, refined sugar, and then also get help. Like you don't have to do it by yourself. So reach out to someone that knows what they're doing, knows what they're talking about, and can kind of help you and give you guidance and help you feel more just like supported in this lifestyle change. Because, eating more plants or getting rid of more meat products, like we don't live in a society that's super supportive of that. So you really want to be able to find a support system, whether you hire a coach, like I coach people one-on-one, or you have a friend who wants to do it with you, whatever it looks like, just get that support and be able to slowly kind of detoxify your life. And it's the other thing I want to say too. It's a slow process. So it's not like you're taking a prescription pill and you'll notice something in a day. It's a slow process. You're slowly kind of allowing your body to heal, and you're giving your gut a chance to regenerate, and it's a slow roll. So I just like have patience is the number one thing too. Because when you're sick for a long time, it can be so just taxing on your mind, body, and soul. But when you decide to make a big change, just have patience and wait to see what happens.
That's such a great story. And like, if people are listening and you don't have an autoimmune condition, all these things might sound a little like extreme to do. Like Chef Bailey said, it's a slow roll. But I see so many people, especially women, and more in the past recent years, who have these conditions. They know something's wrong with them, but they say the American medical system is the worst at prevention and the best in emergencies. So,
Mm-hmm.
they're not equipped to deal with an autoimmune, because autoimmune disease, it's not masking a symptom, it's actually finding the cause of a problem. And Western medicine's not really like set up for that. So when you go to all the different doctors and you get all the blood work done and you're told you're fine, and you don't feel fine, or maybe you do have a diagnosis, but it's just the way to treat it isn't helping you, and you have to live with this. It completely destroys people's quality of life. So to have an answer to that is amazing. And I
Mm-hmm.
know the answer to this, but I would like you to share it. Why is it that medicine, in your opinion, doesn't like solve for this? Because when you go to the doctor, they'll never tell you, well, eat plant-based. They'll never tell you, well, cut this toxin out. Like that's not how our medical system's designed.
Well, there's a few reasons. I have a lot of close friends who are MDs, like my best friends, like finishing medical school right now.
Yeah.
And, the reality is they spend like a tiny little fraction of the amount of time in all of medical school looking at
Yes.
nutrition. So there's that. It's also, they study medicine, which is studying pharmaceuticals basically. So it's not really like kind of what their focus is. So if you're really looking for like a natural kind of, you have to have a team of doctors. Like, yeah, we need our MD because we need, ultrasounds and we need blood work and all that stuff. But you can also get an acupuncturist, and you can also get a naturopathic doctor, and you can also kind of create this like team of people around you, where then you can kind of really become your own health advocate and get what you need from these people. And there's also, especially when it comes to women's health, like how many women are told that like, oh, your body's just attacking itself. You have an autoimmune disease, like try this protocol, like good luck. That's kind of
Yeah,
what so
that's what
many
I'm
of my
saying. There's
clients
no
get.
good solutions. Yeah. So I
Yeah,
love
there's
that
just
you're
not a
able to
lot of,
do this. It's
yeah,
amazing.
there's just not a lot of funding, and that's the other thing too. Like, I mean, if you look at 1 in 10 women endometriosis, I mean, I'll just say that as an example, like 1 in 10 women have endometriosis. There's like no endometriosis specialist doctors. There's like a couple of them, but it's like one in
Really?
10 women. Yeah, it's like, it's crazy.
Wow.
Like the statistics are nuts. And when you look at women's health in general, I mean, if you look at the amount of money that's invested in Viagra and erectile dysfunction every year versus the amount of money that's invested in women's health, it's very obvious where like
Oh my God.
importance, where the money is going. So, you just have to realize that like as a woman, you have to become your own health advocate. You have to educate yourself. Like, for instance, now I go to the doctor and I'm in control of the conversation. I'm like, this is what I need. I need to order this. I need an ultrasound. I need results. And I'm not taking your advice because they'll just do the same things that the other 20 specialists did, which is, put me on medication that already I know didn't work for me. And so when you're your own health advocate, you're able to really stick up for yourself and get what you need, because it's also not necessarily the fault of the doctor. It's just the whole system is not set up for
That's what
looking
it
at
is.
why this. Yeah, it's not necessarily, because I don't like to really bash on doctors because they,
No,
they're
of
doing
course
their
not.
best. Yeah,
But you said it so well.
exactly.
You said they're trained in pharmaceuticals, and that's what it is. There's this
Exactly.
much nutrition, and there's no plant-based this and that. So, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, you said that so well. I love that. Um, what do you eat in a day? What does a day of eating look like for you?
Oh my gosh, I love
It's
this
like
question.
amazing gourmet
So,
meal. Like I can only imagine like it must be like so Insta-worthy every meal that you make.
oh my gosh, it's honestly not. It's so funny because I cook for a living. So I just kind of get it in where I can, to be totally honest with you. But I'll usually wake up and I'll have a super huge cold pressed green juice like every single day. So like 32 ounces. I'll do like celery, cucumber, lemon, some apple. I don't know. My husband makes like some crazy juices sometimes with like purple cabbage and all sorts of beets and stuff.
That's cool.
Um, so yeah, I have a big juice. I try to drink like tons of water every single day. I drink a matcha, and then I'll usually, like, it's summer right now, so I honestly don't crave a ton of food until like noon, where I'll have like a fruit bowl with like coconut yogurt or something like that. And then in the afternoon, God, what do I eat? I'm like a big snacker. So I'll have like hummus and veggies, or I'll just like make myself a quick taco. We live in San Diego, so we eat tacos like all the time. Like it's like my go-to. Like, I'm hungry, I'm just gonna go grab a taco from a taqueria. And then for dinner, it's just like I'm pretty much snacking all day because I'm cooking or I'm thinking about food or I'm talking about food or I'm podcasting or something. And so I'm just kind of like getting in little bites, which I've actually noticed has been the best thing for my metabolism. Instead of focusing on these big meals like 3 times a day, just having like, like a small salad or some like bell peppers and hummus, or like, I don't know, a taco. Here I am talking about tacos again. It's just really helped my metabolism, really helps me like manage my own weight. Cause in the winter time, I notice I struggle with my weight, as most people do. It's because I'm eating like bigger meals. It's like not as nice out. And in the summer, it's so nice because I'm just like snacking away and I feel really good. And then for dinner, you know, I just eat all the things. Like, I love vegan pizza. There's some really good plant-based pizza restaurants here in San Diego. I just like love Thai food. I love tofu. There's so many amazing creative ways you can make tofu. I love organic tofu like so much. Um, I love Italian food. Like, there's literally just like there's this Spanish tapas place by me that I just like I'm obsessed with. So we like love that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm just like snacking. I love eating at restaurants. It's so funny. People think that I'm making these like elaborate meals for myself all the time, but I'm usually making elaborate meals for other people. And then I'm just kind of getting it in when I can.
Totally understand that. That's amazing. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That was great. And
Yeah.
tell everybody where they can find you. Mention when your book's going to be out again. Tell everybody where they can connect with you.
Yeah, totally. So like the best place to get in touch with me is either on Instagram or TikTok. It's at chef_bay. And then you can cook with me in my online cooking program. I'm actually doing a month free right now until the end of July. So you can do that. You can sign up on my website at www.chefbay.kitchen/cook vibe heal. And then the coupon code is cook with me in all caps for a free month of cooking with me, which is cool. So if you're like unsure, you want to try it out and see if it's for you, then just sign up for the free month. And then, yeah, my cookbook, it's called Cook Heal Go Vegan. I'm so excited. It is available everywhere August 17th, but it is available for pre-sale right now. So if you're interested, the pre-sales really just mean so much. It helps bookstores know that people want the book. So it lets them know that they should stock it. So it's really important for authors for pre-sale. And we're having like a ton of book launch events. So we're doing a free community cooking class on August 16th, which is going to be so exciting. So you can sign up for free on my website for that. And if you live in San Diego or Denver, Colorado, we're doing 2 in-person book launch events with like music and dancing and vegan food trucks and stuff. I'm super excited. So yeah, all that information's on my Instagram at chef_bay.
That's amazing. And we will link all of that in the show notes. I'm going to order my copy right now because I am so
Yay,
excited to check
thanks.
that out. Thank you so much for coming on, and I can't wait to read your cookbook.
Cool. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.